80s in Buffalo, even as a guy, like in January or February, I'd go to a tanning bed. I couldn't and for 30 minutes, no less. And you'd always fall asleep somewhere in that 30 minutes and wake up and that light would go off and you'd wake up freezing. Like, what just happened? So confused when you wake up in this glass coffin. But in that time, though, just feel that light on your face, especially in Buffalo where there's no sun for like 5-6 months. I know that it's, cancer, but
yeah, I ended up with 2 of them from that. So
yeah, no, I know you did. And I hear you. I have some things where I weigh out. I just do a little tiny bit because I have vitamin D issues and bone issues and things like that. So I'm going to lose here or lose here one, somehow, some way. I just have
something's going to get you. It's just, for me, it's not going to be a freckle.
True.
Yeah. The freckle's not taking me out.
Yeah.
Doreen, Michelle, Kristen, True, how is everybody? Glad to see our live studio audience is coming in. I'll take this moment to welcome everybody to another live episode of the Three View Mirror, where the 3 of us will sit together over the next hour and entertain you with 3 different topics, harkening back. Yes, I said harkening. Is that a word?
Oh my God. Word, right? That's an old man word, but yes, it is.
Yeah, okay.
Harkening back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s that a lot of us grew up in. And this week I get to be the host, so I have 3 topics. There is something hidden between those 3, something that is connecting those 3, and it's up to my 2 friends here and you all to try to figure out what hidden connection I've placed into my topics. And I got to tell you, this one was tough to pick the topics to connect. There was a million different ways I kind of wanted to go. Even coming down to the last second, I played around with it, but I think I'm pretty happy with my topic. So we'll see. Quick introduction to those that maybe are joining us for the first time. My name is John Katrides, better known as Gen X Jono across my social media platforms, and I'm joined by 2 of my friends. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, starting with you, Shell.
I am Rochelle O'Black, better known as Gen X Shell across my social media. I've been here and there and about for a while now. I just came back from a vacation, so I'm in vacation mode. Feeling really good.
Awesome. And I'm Chris Clues, better known as Chris Clues, always in vacation mode because I live in South Florida, so don't be jealous. And I am a speaker and author, and I talk about and write about the lessons for life and work that we can learn from 80s pop culture. And if you are looking for a great holiday gift, whatever holiday you celebrate, my books are on Amazon. You just type in my name, Chris Clues, CLEWS, and the 3 books in my series on 80s pop culture and what they can teach us will come up. And I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Welcome to the 3 View Mirror.
Floating heads. We got to do something about that.
Yeah, we do.
We all look like those eraser tops that you could get for your pencil in the school supply store. Mm-hmm. But they were like aliens and different type of stuff. That's what our heads look like.
Yeah.
Welcome. I see Matt's here. Welcome to your first live, Matt. Hi, Life. Oh, and somebody mentioned something. I think Tyson coming on. So Gen X versus Gen Z for all those that are watching that tonight. I was this close to making a Mike Tyson connection, but I decided not to. So he's not the connection tonight. All right. Our 3 topics today. And now, again, for those that are joining the first time, these 3 topics seem fairly random, but there's something when positioned the right way, all 3 of them have in common. Things connect through them. There's something or someone that can relate to each and every topic. And my 3 topics today are Welcome Back, Kotter, 8 is Enough, and Band-Aid. Not the Band-Aid concert, although we can talk about it, but the Band-Aids or Band-Aids.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 today. Starting with Welcome Back, Kotter.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Do it.
Don't be scared.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around,
It makes me
but
sad.
those dreams have remained and they've turned around. Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Back here where we need ya. Back here where we need ya. Yeah, they tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Good enough.
It is amazing
Welcome
to
back,
me that, you know, you can still sing the song so many years later, and I haven't heard that in ages. Ages. I haven't heard that in ages, and you can still sing it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, but the intros and the theme songs back then were so catchy, and they took up real estate. Like, the reason they don't do that, the reason a lot of shows today start right in the show, is they're not willing to give up a minute and a half of advertising time, a minute and a half of storyline. They've added more commercials. It's just considered wasted real estate right now. But all our shows really invested a lot on their theme songs, on what they decided was going to, even into the 90s, where you had that 90s era. It changed, right? The 70s had a feel, the 80s had a feel, the 90s had that Full House feel where everybody stops what they're doing, looks at the camera and smiles. But after that, they kind of stopped it.
Yeah, well, back then too, remember, like, a lot of these theme songs actually became top 10 hits, and it was a revenue stream for a lot of these production companies as well. And it's not so much anymore. I mean, I think the last one probably that may have even made some money for a TV show was possibly The Big Bang Theory. But Friends before that, and we always talk about Friends, of course. But these shows were, the theme song was an integral part of the personality of the show.
And it stuck with us, and we still remember it. Now, we've talked, the reason I wanted to use Welcome Back, Kotter, is we were talking last week about either unintended or at least not fully thrown in your face diversity in television when we grew up. It wasn't, the story dictated the diversity. It wasn't like they intentionally built a story around diversity for the sake of showcasing diversity. It was, okay, we're going to make this group of kids that are sitting in what is basically a remedial classroom in Brooklyn, and what would have been in the population back then in that town. And they made sure the classroom was representative of it. But because of that, we had different ethnic groups represented in that classroom, a lot of them. And it wasn't the point of doing so. It wasn't the point of casting, but it led to really interesting stories and great jokes, and just, it made it really easy to write to.
Mm-hmm.
And John Travolta, if I had to put a picture of what a typical 70s guy looked like in my brain and say, just imagine it. John Travolta in Welcome Back, Kotter was like his outfit, his hair, his whole look was, it felt to me like quintessential 70s.
The Sweat Hogs.
And
the Sweat Hogs.
Yeah, the Sweat Hogs. And we've talked a lot about this too when we talk about TV shows and the impact they had on pop culture. And it feels like a show like Welcome Back, Kotter was on for 10 seasons, but it was four seasons, and it had that big of an impact. And so many of the shows back then that we think about, and we're like, oh, that show must have been on forever. No, most of them were 3, 4, maybe 5 seasons.
In the beginning of it too, I like that there wasn't a lot of characters there. It almost reminds me of the beginning of Taxi. It has that same softness to the beginning of it too. The Taxi, the TV show. It just, you see the background, you see the city. It's like you're transported there, and you're, the train with all the graffiti on it. You're like, yeah, this is going to be this isn't mom and dad being too fancy Cosby Show style where everyone was perfect, throughout the late 80s and 90s kind of a thing. You knew it wasn't going to be perfect.
Well, we've talked about before, the 70s was very gritty.
Mm-hmm.
In its, what do the kids use? Aesthetic. Whether it was One Day at a Time, Alice, this show, a lot of it was very
Alice.
gritty, and this show was definitely gritty. Yeah, she was, a single mom working as a waitress.
Mm-hmm.
All in the Family was gritty. And this fell to that. JTR, the serial killer, just said, up your nose with a rubber hose. This show gave us the put downs that we needed the next day in school, too. I think ours was up your nose with a running hose and drive it far with a running car. But they would constantly go at each other in this show. Boom, Boom, Washington, Freddie Boom, Boom, Washington. Yep. There was Epstein, just great characters. And again, the thing that I think people forget, this wasn't Saved by the Bell. These weren't the pretty kids. This wasn't 90210. This is the dim-witted, slow children of the school that are sitting in the remedial class. And they became our heroes. I think there's something really to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there was, a lot of merchandise that came out of this show as well. I mean, they made a lot of money off the merchandise, lunch boxes, and there was a game, Up Your Nose with a Rubber Hose. I believe there was a game as well. They had action figures for Welcome Back, Kotter.
Wait, I wish I would have known that ahead of time what the topic here was, because I actually have a Welcome Back, Kotter game somewhere down. Now that you say it, like you're right. They did have merchandising, and I have a copy of that
I have
game.
the lunchbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was that merchandise was huge back then as well. Again, it was another opportunity to generate and create a revenue stream, and it worked because we became so close to the characters. Mm-hmm. And there are some great shows today that allow us to get close to some characters, but I don't know if it feels the same. The connections that we had, and I think the grittiness is what John talked about. That these were so many of these shows had characters that we like. Yeah, I know somebody like that. But today, like, I don't know, like some shows do, but most shows are just like showing you a different universe or community or something that you don't associate with. I mean, I only think of this because I was watching the new episode of Yellowstone the other night, and it's a cool show, but I can't relate to people on a ranch. I'm looking at their life through their eyes. But Welcome Back, Kotter, I had those kids in my school, 100%.
I was watching Yellowstone the other day as well, and I looked over at my husband and I said, that's like a $750,000 setup, just that one truck, you know what I mean? And the trailer and the horses in it and stuff like that. I'm like, I can't relate to any of this. This is like mega $1 million of stuff, and I couldn't relate to it. And I think it's what Welcome Back, Kotter was kind of like what Roseanne brought to the 80s, the later 80s. Roseanne brought that, like, average freaking family, man. They fight and they right in the head sometimes, and they're just average. And we all had little pieces of them, especially in the mid 80s and things where everything was, everybody had to be perfect. That's when our supermodels started coming and all of this other stuff. And then you got a show like Roseanne. And I imagine, and it was too young for me, for Welcome Back, Kotter to see that transition, but coming off of the 60s, and I imagine with, the Flower Child Revolution there at the end of the 60s, 70s, and the war, that people wanted to get back down to just, let's find out what it's really like to be just gritty in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and a big part of it is in those 70s, I mean, we're looking at inflation now in the country. Inflation and unemployment and economic stagnation in the economy it was everything. So TV was an escape in a way, but we weren't ready for the escapism of the 80s yet, because I don't think television wanted to show us something there's no way in hell we could ever attain. Mm-hmm. That would have made us angry. So it kind of showed struggling people, average people on television, because they're like, okay, look, they're happy with nothing. And I can't get past, like, John Travolta, Barbarino. He was pretty. He was a good-looking guy, but he was dumber than a box of rocks, and they didn't try to hide it. He was just dumb, and it's like, and they embraced it. It was okay. They all played their part perfectly, and they were all kids we knew in school. And to your point, as a precursor to the beautiful Carringtons and the rich people of Dallas back in the day, kind of like Yellowstone today, this was just what life looked like for us. Mm-hmm. And again, I can't say it enough. I love the fact that they're focusing on the kids, the other kids in school. I can't think of a show that did that before or after.
I was just going to say, when you said before, I was going to say, I can't think of anything even after that. personally, like if you ever did a topic on 90210, I'd be like, you would think I would have watched that, Melrose Place and 90210 stuff. But I was like, I can't watch that. I have no connection with those people whatsoever. I would, and you know what? It would have been a lot more fun to hang out in Welcome Back Kotter than it would have in the 90210 classrooms. I'll say that.
A Florida man mentions Kelso from the 70s show. That comes close. Mm-hmm. Those were average kids. I don't think they were quite as dim-witted as the Sweat Hogs, but close.
Yeah, they also, I mean, that's something we've talked about on this show too, is that, and I've mentioned this when I talk to people who are younger and we're talking about movies like The Breakfast Club and how they say that they, these kids, high school kids saying they can relate to those movies because they relate to the characters. And that's what it was in the 70s too. The same thing. People could relate to those characters. Like I said, they knew somebody like that, but then you got to that point where everybody was perfect and polished. And I mean, I didn't mind that so much with Kelly Kapowski, of course, but in Saved by the Bell, it wasn't, didn't have show deference to her, but the reality is like everybody became perfect at some point, and that's just not reality.
Yeah.
Well, and things, like I said, quickly changed once we get into the 80s. I think there was a new era that came in. There was a big push towards commercialization, and everybody wanted stuff, and everybody was buying on credit. And even though we couldn't afford the things that Linda Evans or Joan Collins were wearing on Dynasty, you could afford to at least charge knockoffs, and everything changed. But I guess I just missed somebody mentioned that, even Good Times showed people growing up in the projects.
Yeah.
One Day at a Time, that was some semblance of a tenement apartment somewhere. They weren't living high on the hog. And I love that you never really very often got to see the home life of the Sweat Hogs. The entire show was basically through Gabe Kaplan's eyes. Mm-hmm. He went to school. You saw them there. And then at night, at the end of most episodes, he would go back home and it'd be him and his wife talking about his day. And he would do a little comedy routine at the end of it, summing up the day there. And I just loved the show. And it's not something I've thought about in a very long time, but it was really, really well put together.
Yeah, and the point that we keep making, even shows we mentioned like Taxi, and how that show today would probably be people in a Wall Street firm. But it was better as a taxi dispatch. And those, just the people are more real, they're ridiculous, and that's life. And it's so much better, I think, than so much of what we have today. Not to say there isn't some good television, but we're just not seeing everyone reflected anymore. Right. And that's what was great about Welcome Back Kotter and all the shows during that time.
Now we're at about 18-minute mark. So ironically, the other show that I've got as a topic today, 8 is Enough, is also started in the 70s. But it kind of is the antithesis of the Sweat Hogs. 8 is Enough is about this perfect-looking little family with perfect-looking kids and just as suburban as you can get. And that is topic number 2. And let's see how many people remember this intro.
There's a magic in the early morning we found.
One prettier than the next.
When the sunrise smiles on everything around. It's a portrait of the happiness that we feel and always will. Oh, 8 is enough to fill our lives with love.
It was like the other side of the Brady Bunch. You never know how to get off media.
Listen, you showed that, and I don't remember all the words to that one either. But her spinning on the telephone there, like, and her rubbing the thing on when she comes out with the face cream on. I haven't seen that in 30 years. And I couldn't have told you what comes next, but I remember every little tiny little segment of that.
Unlike Brady Bunch or Happy Days, which I think I made a point of watching, 8 is Enough is that show that I would catch. Maybe it just started. Maybe I was watching something else before it, and then this came next. And if it was on, I'd sit there and watch it.
Mhm.
But it was such a kind show. I will say the only unkind thing about the whole thing is the father in the show. What's his name?
Dick Van Patten.
Patton.
Was only 49 years old when the show started, so considerably younger than all of us. And I mean, when I look at him at that intro, I'm like, if he's not 60, write me up a ticket and send me off to jail.
Well, they did have a lot of kids, so it might have stressed them out a little bit.
I don't know, man. Does that what 49 looks like, though?
No,
No,
not anymore.
no.
That's that's cocktails and cigarettes every night. 49.
Well, no, what's her face in the Brady Bunch? She was only I think
Alice.
40. Alice was only
48.
like 48. Something in that show. And I mean, but it has a lot to do with the hair and the
Bullshit. They looked
you know.
old. It's not the hair. Dick
No,
Van
there
Patten's
was-
hair was.
There was there was this woman, she redid the makeup and the hair. She was like an airbrush person. She
Yep.
redid it to be modern times. And she really actually didn't look that bad. Like she doesn't look that bad in today's standards for 48.
Alice looked like she ate unfiltered cigarettes, not smoked them.
Yeah,
I'm
she did.
sorry. I've
She
seen
did.
those things you're talking about. They airbrush the hair and the skin.
Yeah.
It's not just hair. I've said it before. Mr. Roper was 54, and he could stretch his skin up over his face if he wanted to. It wasn't just the
Like
hair.
a cape.
But at any rate,
Yeah.
each kid represented something a little different. So maybe they weren't as diverse as the Sweat Hogs, but you had one which was a little bit more of a hippie kind of vibe at the time. The blonde daughter that was all about looks and being pretty. You had the athletic son, Willie Ames, who went on to become the Bible superhero, Bible Man, later on in his career. Adam Rich, a Gen Xer who, unfortunately, 2 years ago, Chris?
Mhm.
A year ago, passed away at the age of
It was
54.
like a year ago. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
recently.
Really, really, really sad.
Yeah.
But became a huge star. You had the same haircut at one point, didn't you?
I had the page boy. Yeah, I had the page boy, and it was better than the bowl cut. Than when my mom put the bowl on my head and cut my hair around it, and better than when I was 4 years old and my parents let my hair grow down to my ass, and when we moved into a new neighborhood, everybody thought I was a girl.
Well, the girls had the she mullet was a big thing at that point too, where you got the ears cut out, party in the back and short up front kind of thing. And kind of feathered right here kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I remember it.
Yeah.
That was the Joan Jett look.
Yeah.
I think again, like this was, to use a cliche, the must-see TV. And part of the allure of Welcome Back, Kotter, 8 is Enough, and all those shows then is that you had to be in front of your television to watch it.
Mhm.
And whether you're watching with your family or your siblings or even by yourself, you had to be there at 8 o'clock or 8:30 or 9 or whatever time that show was on. There was no alternative. And maybe they did some reruns for a couple of shows during the summer before the next season started. But for the most part, that was it. And I think that's the allure and why, the theme songs are so memorable and they're so memorable because we had to watch at a certain time.
Yep.
Well, and Linda, in our comments section, part of our live studio audience, is naming them all. She's got Mary, David, Nancy, Elizabeth, Joni, Susan, Tommy, and Nicholas. Now, there were a couple cast changes and some things that happened early on in this show. Little bit of trivia. Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame actually had David's part in the pilot. He actually played the oldest son, and the Grant Goodeve, who actually took on the role, is the one singing the iconic intro song. Grant Goodeve ended up replacing him when Mark Hamill got out of his contract so he could play Luke Skywalker. I guess he had an auto accident that took him out of filming for a while, and then ultimately he was released from the 8 is Enough contract, which let him go on to play Luke Skywalker.
Thankfully, I guess, because
Yeah.
I don't know that 8 is Enough launched too many careers, to be honest.
I mean, Willie Ames did really well with it. Adam Rich did pretty well with it.
Yeah. But I mean,
Dick
it
Van
wasn't
Patten
household
definitely
name.
went on to be a quintessential dad, whether it was in after-school specials or movies. He basically got typecast in that role.
Yeah.
And was always one of those dad types. His sons actually did some cameos, and they went on to have some careers. They did okay.
Yeah, but none of them became huge stars, I guess.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm saying is like, I mean, everything leads to something, but they might have been big names for the time, but they didn't endure all
Correct.
throughout.
I like to call them teen beat stars. So like there was not an episode, there was not a magazine you wouldn't see that didn't have the girls in the pages of some of those teenage magazines, or Adam Rich or Willie Ames. They were very much teen idols of the time. But they manufactured those back then in the early 70s and early 80s a lot. And they would churn them out like Menudo. You get to be a certain age, they kick you out and move the next one in.
See, and I if 8 Is Enough was on, and I don't know, I don't remember if they were on at the same time, but like I was more of a Partridge Family kind of a person, and I don't know, what was the years of the Partridge Family?
Probably right around the same time, maybe a little earlier, actually. Yeah. I would say that's earlier. Doreen mentions Ralph Macchio was also on the show, and he was on for an entire season before he was discovered from here and moved on to the Outsiders movie, and from then on it was all speed ahead for him. But he credits this show as being what launched him.
Stay golden, Pony Boy.
Cindy tells us that the entire cast did plenty of Love Boat appearances, Shell, so they were famous in that sense.
All right. Another great theme song.
Absolutely.
They're trying to replicate that a little bit with this new show. Actually, I saw with Don Johnson. It's got a different formula where they follow the doctor on board, but it's got a similar kind of feel.
Different guests every week.
Wait, did I miss something? There's a new Love Boat?
It's not Love Boat. It's the show. I can't think of the name, but I just saw the advertisement for it. It's Don Johnson is the whatever you call the pilot of the cruise ship.
Oh.
The captain. And then it follows the doctor and all the stuff that happens on the ship. But
is he the doctor from the Love Boat?
I think everybody's dead who was in the Love Boat. I'm being honest.
Captain Stubing was only 46.
What?
He knows all the numbers, and it just, you're like, okay, that's fine. Give me one that you go, all right, I'm surprised at that one.
I don't have many. I'm telling you, they didn't live old enough to be surprising. I've said it a million times. Bourbon for breakfast is not a recipe for longevity.
Yeah. 2 packs of smokes, unfiltered Camels. It's all good stuff. Yeah.
Ralph Macchio was around 25 when he started in the first Karate Kid. Yeah, well, Macchio just turned 61 a couple days ago.
He looks fantastic.
Yeah, a couple days ago. He turned 61. He's actually older than Terry Silver. That's also in.
Is he really?
Karate Kid that looks older than him.
Yeah.
He's older than Miyagi was in the Karate Kid movie.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's about 8 years older than Mr. Miyagi was in the Karate Kid movie.
Pat Morita.
Who, again, I've said it before, I was shocked. I saw an interview of him maybe only about a year or two ago. I went my entire life thinking he spoke like that because he had that accent in Happy Days and he had it in the Karate Kid movies. I had no idea he was born in California.
Mm-hmm. He's like,
do you have a favorite 8 Is Enough kid? Did you watch it enough? I know a lot of the girls were all about Willie Ames, the curly hair. Some liked Grant Goodeve, I guess.
No.
I
honestly, it wasn't.
I had a huge crush on Elizabeth. The one of the long. She was the Valerie Bertinelli of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, if your family, what the funny thing is though about TV in the early 80s or so, if your mom and dad didn't watch that show, it wasn't one of their shows, and it wasn't exactly like a family, it was a family show. And if they weren't sitting down to watch this family show, you weren't, like you said, you weren't turning it on like, oh, I can't wait to see 8 Is Enough tonight. I don't know why.
You know how we often talk about how sitcoms had very special episodes?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they'd go away from their usual stuff and just 8 Is Enough was a series that was almost exclusively composed of very special episodes. They dealt with heavy stuff almost constantly. Yeah. Because with so many kids in the house and they were running storylines between them, someone was always suffering from alcoholism. Somebody was always out too late. Somebody was getting beat up in their marriage. So I mean it was like the original Party of 5, but there were 8 of them. And instead of just Bailey running around drunk, 6 out of the 8 were at all times.
It was like an after-school special at night.
Yes.
I think John's passive aggressively saying something about my life right here. I think he's pointing to me because in my family we are 8 is enough. There's 8 of us in our family, and like you just mentioned it, I guess every day of my life is a very special episode. There's always something, when you do have to deal with that large of a family and so many personalities. I've got 6 kids, for those of you on here that don't know that, 6 teenagers, and let me tell you, just in hormones alone, each day you have no idea what that day is going to bring you. So I guess I literally live 8 is enough, very special episodes at least 3 times a day.
Wow.
3 would be generous.
I think you found the name of a new podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I really could.
8 is enough.
8 is enough.
Now, the show featured, I mentioned before, Dick Van Patten as the dad, and then Abby as the girlfriend that becomes the stepmom in the show. But for the first 4 episodes, there actually was a mother. Diana Hyland played the part of the mother, but she only was in the episodes, the first 4, because the actress that played her actually died of breast cancer during the filming. Mm-hmm. And they didn't know whether to hold back the episodes, what to do. And they made the decision, talking about the drama in the show itself, to just run with it. And she actually dies in the show as well. And I remember as a kid watching that, and that was probably one of my earliest memories of really thinking like, oh my God, these kids just lost their mom. Like, she just died of cancer. Now, the thing I didn't like is they brought Abby in. She was I think she was like the nurse that was watching over the mother, and then went from nursing to sliding into Dick Van Patten's bed. So I thought that might have been rushed a little bit for a show like 8 is enough. But yeah, there's that too. So there's a little bit of interest. That's another little bit of a change.
Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking about the time that it came out, 77 to 81 or 82, and Shell, you were mentioning like, maybe some families watched it, some didn't, but I don't recall us watch it. It wasn't, my dad was, we were watching like Andy Griffith, if it was still around. I think it was tailing off then. MASH, the Jeffersons, like that was the style in my house. Like, it wasn't going to be the family type sitcoms, if that's what you want to call it. I mean, I was already experiencing adult humor at 8 years old. So
I think that was it. It was a little too wholesome, even because by the time I was, let's say I would have been 8, 9, 10 years old. By the time I was then, like, yeah, I'd already watched some things that I probably shouldn't have been watching. I was already addicted to horror movies by that point, I mean, so 8 is enough was a little too vanilla for me. And then there wasn't anybody that I looked at it and I was like, oh, I love this guy's attractive or whatever.
John and Linda corrected me. It's true. Abby was a teacher, and then she also helped tutor Tommy when he broke his leg. That's how Dick Van Patten jumped on her. I knew she entered the house under some wholesome arrangement that went terribly, terribly wrong. First of all, she looked like she was in her 30s, and he looked like he was in his 60s. So I'm like, well, that didn't match up. But at any rate, that was the situation there. They needed, with those kids, to have a mom figure in, and they moved her in very quickly.
I have to say, in the audience, I love that the audience just like they're coming up with this stuff like this. They know this stuff. Like, nope, it was a tutor. And I love the corrections. I love the everything about it. So thank you, everybody that is watching this and being our live studio audience here, because you're amazing. And I love
them our 4th host for a reason. I mean, they're right in there with us.
Yeah.
Now, you brought up a great point, though, Shell. You're like wholesome TV versus All in the Family versus more adult. In the 70s and early 80s, there was that chasm between the two. You would have shows that were really tilting into adult humor, but at the same time, we had shows literally, I was going to say family shows, but a show like Family, like 8 is Enough, like Little House on the Prairie, that was really more suited towards wholesome television. Now, there were episodes of Little House on the Prairie that would traumatize people today. That kind of goes without saying. I don't think we've ever dove into that one.
No.
Hearkened.
So,
remember earlier you weren't as hearkened.
Grizzly Adams. There was really just soft television, and then there was really hard television.
Yeah.
Grizzly Adams, just the theme song would make me cry. I was like, oh my God.
Soft TV. You said you didn't watch those shows.
No, Grizzly Adams. I loved Grizzly Adams. Oh, Chips. See, someone mentioned Chips.
Yeah.
I love Chips. I love Chips.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's if you mentioned the tutor with Tommy, and like the differences in this day and age, instead of the tutor falling for the fathers, would have fell for Tommy. Like that they would have made some big thing out of that, and that's the difference. Is that was much more wholesome, but we're so cynical these days to be like, oh yeah, the tutor and Tommy, not the tutor and the husband or the father. I mean,
it's just, I don't know. You can take 8 as enough and swap it out, to Shell's point earlier, with Partridge Family or Brady Bunch or Family. It was just a moment in time where the cynicism was put on a shelf. And would any family be this perfect, be this wonderful? No, that's why a lot of the episodes show that this wasn't either. But at the end of the day, no matter what problems were involved, they would wrap it up in a neat little bow by the end of the half hour. And the fact that they loved one another and that they had good morals was enough to keep them together. That was the time. Every single one of these shows would always wrap it up at the end, and their love was enough to see them through. And I miss that.
Yeah, it was Adam Sandler-ish back in the day. His original movies. Yeah, he's awesome. They always had a heart.
Whatever.
They did.
All right, for those keeping track, we started today's episode talking about Welcome Back, Kotter and the Sweat Hogs. We moved up into 8 is Enough. And now I want to finish on something that for Generation Xers was a staple in every Gen X home, along with the mercurochrome and any painful substance we had to put onto the wounds when we hurt ourselves. And that was the Band-Aid. And the first thing I want to point to is the fact that I don't think I ever grew up calling bandages anything other than a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's like Crisco. It became the name of what it is.
Xerox.
Xerox. Yes. But you had. I want to say this to our studio audience here. So you had access to Band-Aids, because I've talked about this before. Band-Aids were like, your mom had the little metal container. It was metal, and like there were like DEFCON levels of whether you got a Band-Aid or not. I mean, it had to be pretty darn bad before she was going to extend the honor of giving you a Band-Aid. I mean, my kids today, like they like have this scratch, like, can I have a Band-Aid? I'm like, yeah, here's your Band-Aid, But back then it was like these things were gold. You
were
pull
they
down
really
the little red
expensive?
string.
Because that's how it was in my house too.
Yeah.
Even the nurse, even in school, if you rarely left the nurse's office with an actual Band-Aid on you, she'd clean it up. She'd put a little bit of water on it and clean it up. Maybe give you an ice pack for a few minutes and then send you back out. Right. But I don't remember an instance where the nurse actually let me leave with a Band-Aid on a wound.
Right, because it had, I mean, like if you could have a brush burn this large and you might get one Band-Aid stuck across it, depending on what you did on the playground out there. The Band-Aids weren't handed out like candy like they were then. And it was a thing. Your mom looked at you and she's like, yeah, well, okay, we'll take a look at that one for a little bit. Blow on it. We'll put the methylate, the mercurochrome on it. We'll blow on it. It'll be nice and red. You'll be all right. Just move along.
Kevin says electrical and duct tape when we couldn't get a Band-Aid.
That's what I'm saying. Band-Aids were not just given out.
Well, so in the when we grew up, there was a large turn in marketing towards ouchless, towards tear-free, like Johnson & Johnson, no more tears, because our parents would bathe us. My mom bathing us, by the way, was like a CIA agent trying to get information out of somebody while waterboarding them. We were all thrown in the tub together. She had some pseudo Tupperware bowl there that she would use to waterboard us to get the shampoo out of our eyes. And I just remember it was like pouring soap into my eyes. There was no such thing as no more tears. Bath time was nothing. The water was salt water by the time we were done. There were so many tears. And the Band-Aids, dude, they stuck on the wound as much as anything else.
I'm
Greek, and I've been Greek a very long time. So this is not what you want to put a Band-Aid on.
You had the early epi-lady with the Band-Aids because, they pull off hair. It was like using duct tape on a wound because it came off like duct tape. And you were lucky if the scab didn't come off on that weirdo pad that had like plastic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't bleed on my rug. Rub some dirt in it, and you'll be all right. We'll move on.
Everything about our first aid back then was rough, though.
Mm-hmm.
Walk it off was a thing. Rub some dirt on it was a thing. That mercurochrome, I remember that at the nurse office, and I've looked it up. I'm like, does it hurt? And everything I say says it doesn't. But to me, I remember, maybe I'm thinking of something else. Maybe it was the iodine. Something they put on wounds was like liquid fire.
It was the methyl. It was like red and liquid lava, and you had to blow on it because it hurt. And like I said, you had a brush burn that took up like your entire like left side, and it didn't matter. You put that stuff on it, you scrubbed it out, whatever it may be. And if you've ever had road rash, because of course we were always riding our bikes, then yeah, it was brutal.
Who pulled the Band-Aid off in your house? Did you pull your own off? Was it mom, dad?
I pulled mine off in like a 4-hour increment, like one little hair at a time. One hair, okay, I'm done. We're going off with the second one. Second hair, because of course, like you said, you went into the bathtub and they stuck, so they didn't even come off in the bathtub.
Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about when you said that we just rubbed dirt on our wound and kept going. And I mean, my best story about that is 12 years old playing football, clearly broke my wrist. My wrist was broken. I'm like holding it like this. I come over to my sideline. It's the third quarter. My dad's like, finish the game. We'll go to the hospital after that. I mean, that was just, so I'm running around with like my hand here playing with one hand. And, nowadays everybody would probably, charge him with a felony. But back then it was totally different. It was just like, you're fine. You're okay. He's like, it's not going to break anymore. It's broken. So just, whatever. Just go play. And that was very similar to everything else when it came to Band-Aids or whatever. You need stitches? Okay, fine, whatever. We'll go later. But for right now, just, put some water on it. You'll be good. Garden hose water, of course.
Of course.
Someone mentioned hydrogen peroxide too. That was that was actually the kind of a fun portion of a wound sometimes, was because then it would bubble up and you got to feel that little tingle and as long as it wasn't a big wound.
So for me, it was my mother. She would watch me. Mine was a combination of two. It was me pulling it slowly off. And eventually, I don't know why, but it would get on her nerves. And she talks about it to this day. She's like, watching you just try to take it, just got on my nerves so bad. She'd walk by and just quick as you could ever imagine, grabbed it and went, whoosh, and would rip it off me. Pulling Band-Aids off was nothing. Pulling your scabs off was being a tough kid.
That's true. Somebody said you only got immediate hospital treatment. The bone broke through the skin. That's true.
That's okay. So insurance back then was called major medical.
Yeah.
For me, that's the term I remember. They didn't cover doctor's visits. They didn't it had to be major. So basically our parents had this ideology was, I'm not taking you unless it's going to get covered. And it's not going to get covered unless you're dying. Mm-hmm. So we're going to wait and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And the Band-Aids weren't like they are today either. I mean, there was no waterproof Band-Aid. There was no,
They were all waterproof.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, because I guess it was like cement glue. It was like they had like gorilla
toxic adhesive that bonded it to your skin on a molecular level.
Now I know how they invented Gorilla Glue.
Exactly.
They actually used that stuff from the old school Band-Aids.
I guarantee you the glue they're using on Band-Aids was probably found to be toxic in 1997. They didn't tell us. And they just changed the formula. Because these things, once you got it, with the song, I'm stuck on Band-Aid, ran because Band-Aid stuck on me. Yeah, for life.
Forever. Like until you got a sunburn and it left a mark there where, yeah.
Forever.
The Band-Aids, somebody else mentioned too that the Band-Aids now, they don't stick at all, even the waterproof ones. And now we've got and back then there were no, like, you might have had small, medium, and large. And I can remember this one little Band-Aid. It was the little teeny little
yes.
And our parents didn't replace the tin until they were all gone. So at one point, you were putting 6 of the tiny
6 of those all the way up and down, right? Because you didn't buy a new thing of Band-Aids because all the large ones were gone.
That's right.
Mom, we need new Band-Aids. No, not empty yet.
No, well, we got some more. Pull out that metal tin. I got a metal tin downstairs too. I should have brought that up.
I forgot about the metal tin. I can actually feel it opening and the release and everything. Yeah. That was so cool.
Don't forget, back in the day too, if you remember, like I still have trouble opening Band-Aids and stuff, but back in the day, you had that little red strip of string that you had to pull to open up the Band-Aid.
That's right.
And so you pulled the little red string. You couldn't find the red string. Then your mom's sitting there going, out. Bitch, you know what I mean? And she's trying to pull the red string. And then the Band-Aids were so sticky, they would stick onto themselves and they weren't coming unstuck. Oh, I got to get another Band-Aid, you know? Yeah.
I think they were brilliantly created to ruin 3 when you tried to put on 1. That's why our parents didn't want to do it. Because you're right. It would stick to itself as you were trying to put it on, and then you couldn't get it apart. So that one got thrown away.
Yeah.
If you cut yourself, you need a tetanus shot for the Band-Aid container. That's true. I mean, because they would. I remember my mom kept those containers to put like Q-tips in and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, they would start to rust.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, the glue boogers. Somebody just said you're right, because then now you not only did you have a wound, but your parents probably put the sticky part over top of at least a portion of the wound because the Band-Aid wasn't big enough, and now you had sticky glue boogers sitting inside of your said wound.
The Band-Aid is this big. The gauze is this big.
Yeah.
And everything else is glue. So there was no way that part of that stickiness didn't go on top of the wound. So that when you were peeling it off finally, once you got past the hair, then you realized, and now the Band-Aid's halfway off and my mom is circling like a shark ready to pounce. I realized that it's actually attached to the wound. And she just made eye contact. So I'm like, this is not going to end well. The whole Band-Aid should have just been gauze with a little bit of glue around the outside, but no, they did it the other way. My mom only ever got the fabric ones. She thought the plastic ones were cheap. That must have been a Canadian thing, Wirehead. I don't remember fabric Band-Aids.
It was years before I ever saw a fabric Band-Aid. They were always plastic with the little dots in them. And then I know that this is an unpopular opinion, but they smelled good.
Yes. No, it's not unpopular. They smelled amazing.
They smelled amazing, like an antiseptic latex. They were kind of like certain things you just wanted to sniff back in the day.
Not as good as Ditto paper.
Or
exactly.
Gasoline.
It was like Ditto paper.
Ditto paper was the best.
Or liquid glue. Liquid glue smelled amazing.
Oh, it did.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. I was glue sniffing.
Rochelle and I are both just so excited about the fact that we sniffed glue. What do they call it? Huffing?
I don't know.
Well, that's paint. That's paint.
Oh, huffing paint. I have not used the word huffing in probably 40 years.
Yeah, you've used huffing, and what was the other one you said today? There was like 90.
I don't know where that one came from. What was that word?
Harkening
back.
Hark the herald angels sing. What are you getting into the spirit?
Fabric bandages work better because they flex. That was the other problem with the plastic Band-Aids. If you had it anywhere that was even remotely a joint, it was useless. The minute you flexed, it was gone. That was the only thing that could break the glue, apparently, was a bending motion. Because they just were, and then that's where I always seemed to cut myself. It was always somewhere that it didn't work well.
And then you put the Band-Aid on, like, say, a knee, which is knees seem to be like the common thing. Yeah. And then your mom made you bend your knee so that it didn't pop off. But then the only part that stayed away was the actual cotton part.
You needed on.
It was off. It was in like a thing like this.
Dude, I can see it.
It never touched the actual
wound. The gauze was bumped up.
Right. Never touched the wound.
That's so funny. See, but I'm still stuck on the fact that your mom actually put them on you. I would get hurt. I would come home and I would try to put the bandages on myself. And to your point, the only time you don't want to be pulling that little string, separating the paper, taking off the plastic wedge and putting is when you're bleeding out. Yeah. Like the worst possible time to try to do all this. Because believe you me, if I was inside actually getting a Band-Aid, I probably needed stitches. And if I got to the point where I was at a hospital because I needed stitches, I was probably dead. I was always 3 steps behind.
That's
If
what
I
I
was
said.
going inside to put on a bandage, I promise you I needed far worse than a bandage.
That's what I said. It was like a DEFCON level. Like your mom did like field trauma. You know, like and the thing is, even amongst each other, you'd have to do field trauma. Like, is this bad enough to go home and ask for a Band-Aid? I don't know. Your friends would tell you, like, yeah, I don't think so, because it wasn't a thing. We were assessing each other for that.
Did you get punished? The other reason your friends told you not to go in to get a Band-Aid is that would be if I went in and let's say my mom was home and I got a Band-Aid, I wasn't coming back out again.
No.
Because it's
right. No, that's right.
If you needed to come in and it's bad enough that you need me to put a Band-Aid, then stay inside because now you're hurt. We actually got punished. If I was like, no, Mom, I just don't want to bleed and get infected, but I still want to go back out and play. No. If it got bad enough that you needed a Band-Aid, go sit down. Now you can stay inside. I literally remember that being a reason why I didn't want to go in and get a Band-Aid because that would mean I couldn't come back out again.
Exactly.
Well, there's also my mom would use the word Band-Aid when I was in really bad shape to make me stay calm, because I had one time where I ended up with 60 stitches in my knee from a BMX accident on a trail, and I got the pedal cut my knee like just really bad, and I pedaled home. It was like 1.5 miles. My knee, like my head, it's just hanging off. And I came up to the door and I knocked on the door. I'm like, Ma, I think I cut myself. And she looked at him. She told me later on, she was like, I have never seen anything like that. And she said, okay, I'm just going to get a Band-Aid and then we're going to go to the emergency room and see what they say. And that was her way. I was like, okay, so all I need is a Band-Aid. Yeah, all you need is a Band-Aid. No, it's not all I needed. But that word made me feel like, okay, put a Band-Aid on it. Everything will be all right.
Yeah, but Scott Oblak, who's one of our biggest fans, I'm a little stalkerish, if I'm being honest. He just always seems to be here, but we appreciate the support, Scott. Mentions that we would get beat for getting Band-Aids. Getting hurt sometimes led to getting spanked.
Yeah.
And honest to God, Scott, as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, he's right. Like if I got hurt, there were times when it engendered anger in my parents. Like I told you because it usually meant that I just done something really stupid, and that's why I got hurt.
To be fair, it was probably because your mom told you, do not go barefoot up that gravel hill and try to ride down and hit the bump at the end on your bike and blah, blah, blah. Don't do it. Don't do it. Then you'd have to come home and now you have road rash, at least 3 spots of your body somewhere. And you'd have to explain how you got that. Well, it was just my bike fell over right there. No, you went down that hill again. Now you were in trouble. Now you got hurt and it's all your fault.
But the hurt should have been the consequence. That's learning the lesson. I don't understand why I got the spanking, but I did. I got spanked for being hurt.
Hoagie was saying, show us the scar. I promise you one day that I will. It's an L-shaped scar on my knee like this. And now of course, there's other things that go along with that after damaging your knee like that. But somebody else said that wires, those pedals were cheese graters, and they were. Like I had these, they were called called bear claws, bear claw pedals. And man, no, bear claw. They're bear claw.
Oh, I thought them as bear traps. It looks like a bear trap.
Man. Yeah.
Why did they have to be like that to make our sneakers hold on?
I think part of it was like if you were really into BMX racing too, like they helped when you like on a berm and you were cutting. They did actually do some good underneath. The problem was that they were selling these pedals to people who were leisurely doing BMX, and those things were deadly. I mean, they were really, really freaking deadly. And for some reason, whenever you fell, they were right there, no matter what. No matter where you fell, like, oh, here's the pedal. I'm just going to cut you.
Yeah.
Whenever
put a Band-Aid on it.
Episodes, I think in my mind, I know what topic is going to create the most conversation and which one may need to artificially be pushed along, or I need to open it up and let it go somewhere else. I'm almost never right. Like I could talk about Band-Aids now for another 20 minutes. Shell, you talking about the tin, talking about how we used to have to separate and open it. Talking about the fact that there were 3 different sizes, 2 of which were completely useless. There's like 3 of the kind we wanted and 12 of the ones we didn't. Well, there was always the big one too. So there'd be the 2 tiny one and then the big one that just didn't go anywhere.
Did your mother also have a few Band-Aids in there that the package was actually like, that wasn't antiseptic in there because the package of the paper had already turned yellow. Like the paper itself that holds the Band-Aids, you're like, this is not like cleanly. I know it. I know that Band-Aid's been in there since at least like 1965, Mom.
Yeah.
If we forced our mother to buy a new pack of bandages before the old one expired, she would transfer the old ones into the new one.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's funny. All right. So today's topics. We talked about Sweat Hogs and Welcome Back, Kotter. We transitioned over into 8 is Enough, and we finished up with stories about our beautiful Gen X childhood and walking it off and rubbing some dirt on it and blowing on it, and when all else failed, putting on a Band-Aid. And I've seen in the comments a couple people from the onset thought they had it figured out. Life, believe me, I saw you from the first minute. He's been typing away saying what the connection is every 5 minutes. I saw you. We just like to wait till the end for the reveal. But I get that you got it. I don't know if you guys read it, if you guys knew it before reading it. What do you think? Where are we?
Well, I had no idea. My thing was I thought maybe there was going to be a connection somehow. John Travolta, Saturday Night Fever, Bee Gees. Maybe the Bee Gees did a Band-Aid commercial. Maybe there was something with, because the Bee Gees would have been big at the time as 8 is Enough. Maybe they had a song in there. I don't know. I had thought along those lines. But then I did read that comment. So then I refrained from, I'm like, now I kind of know. So.
Yeah. So John Travolta was in Welcome Back, Kotter. He was Diana Hyland's boyfriend at the time of her death. He was 18 years younger than her. He was 22 and she was 40. And to this day, he says that was the number one love of his life. And she tragically died in his arms. When he was like literally 22, he was with her all the way through her cancer and an entire year together. That was their relationship. And they met on the set of The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. She played his mother on that show, on that made-for-TV movie. So when you said, Chris, that, well, today the tutor would be going after the kid, I'm like, well, ironically enough, in real life, the mother that died ended up going home with her son from the show. And then famously, one of the first commercials for Band-Aid was this.
I am stuck on Band-Aid brand because Band-Aid stuck on me. I am stuck on Band-Aid because Band-Aid stuck on me. Because they really stick to your fingers and they stick on bended knees.
Remember, only Johnson & Johnson makes Band-Aid brand adhesive bandages with the unique Super Stick adhesive. Depend on the protection of America's #1 bandage.
I am stuck on Band-Aid because Band-Aid stuck on me.
Oh my God.
And they never, ever came off.
And then, well, they show it. They show it in water. They make a deal out of it. But so that was Terry Garr also in that Band-Aid brand commercial. And we just lost her last, 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah, recently, for sure. Yeah.
So I thought it'd be fun to show that as well and let people see it. And then the theme song. Again, do commercials even take the time to be that iconic that 50 years later we remember them?
No.
Do you guys remember Boy in the Plastic Bubble? Was that a TV movie you saw as a kid?
I can remember it, but Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I remember the Seinfeld episode of the Boy in the
Bubble Boy.
The Bubble Boy.
And I remember the John Travolta version of a Bubble Boy. I don't remember that.
Oh no, it's Moots. Moots is the answer you were looking for.
Moors.
Moors. No.
Somebody said Barry Manilow wrote that jingle. I actually thought he did as well. I checked it, and that's actually not one of his. But he's credited with us because he's done so many. Kevin says we never sang in the shower together in the locker room.
Showing off our Band-Aids.
But I mean, honestly, you see that, and to your point, Shell, you saw it and smiled from ear to ear when they showed the tin. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what we look at what commercial from today will engender that sort of response from kids? Is there one? It's gone. It's over. First of all, no one wants to watch commercials. We didn't think we wanted to either. And yet whenever I do a commercial montage, it always goes through the roof. We love our old commercials, even though we didn't think we wanted to be watching them at the time.
Yeah.
Life says I'm drinking. That's his explanation, I guess, for the amount of times he told us he knew and we knew he knew.
We knew you knew.
Yeah, John Travolta, I mean, look, what a career. And, continued to reinvent himself. A lot of people would have had the run that he had in the 70s and into the 80s and Staying Alive and just,
Grease.
And then kind of, Grease, and then kind of fell off a little bit and then reinvented himself. And, kudos to him because a lot of people weren't able to do that. They had their run for 10 years or so, and they were never really able to reinvent themselves once they were kind of typecast. And he moved away from that and did some pretty cool action stuff and played some pretty cool villains. One of the movies that I recall that I really enjoyed, it's like Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. Really fun movie. And just, completely, and then of course Pulp Fiction, but he just went away from that, where he was typecast, and kudos to him for being able to do that. It's not easy.
So I had so many ways I could have connected John Travolta. I didn't want them to be. I thought that the Diana Hyland thing was interesting. And I like when we can teach a little bit about our pop culture, bringing that in. So that worked. I love the Band-Aid connection because I also have a soft spot for Terry Garr and wanted to be able to show that. But I almost used Princess Diana as my third because there was a moment at that 1985 White House dinner where Princess Diana and John Travolta shared a dance, and she's wearing this amazing black dress and looks incredible. And in that moment, I think the entire world forgot that they weren't the couple because it was incredible. As a guy, I remember that being a big deal moment.
I always heard rumors that Princess Diana would go out when visiting with people. Maybe it was with Elton John and such, and that she would go undercover into bars with like Elton John and stuff like that. I'd always heard that. I don't know if it's true. I mean,
What does that have to do with anything?
She was a neat woman. She was a
I'm waiting for the John Travolta connection.
Yeah.
Because I could picture the John Travolta. I could picture the John
I heard
Travolta
somewhere that Princess Diana loved the color blue.
I didn't know that. Somebody said Tarantino said he had to save Travolta's career after the Look Who's Talking movies. Huh.
I love the Look Who's Talking movies, though. I'm a Kirstie Alley fan. I love those movies. I thought they were funny in them. But yeah, Pulp Fiction did put him right back on the fast track.
Yeah, somebody else mentioned Broken Arrow, which is actually a really good action movie with him in it as well.
It is good.
Where he plays a bad guy. So,
did you see the new commercial though, where he's Santa Claus for the credit card commercial?
Yeah.
And then what's her face from Staying Alive? And I cannot think of her name. She's actually the one that he comes into the shop and she's there. That's actually her from Staying Alive as well.
Staying Alive or Saturday Night Fever?
Or Saturday Night Fever. That's what I meant.
Because nobody saw Staying Alive.
I meant Saturday Night Fever. The only thing I say, stay alive, stay alive.
That's what I meant, Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, Saturday Night Fever.
That's the intro, right? Where he's walking down the street and
Yeah.
That movie was so friggin' dirty. Have you seen that movie in the last 20 years?
What, the Saturday Night Fever?
It's really bad.
It's raw.
It's much rawer than it's raw dog raw.
Is it raw dog raw? Okay. No, but what was the girl's name? The one with the bowl cut, with the hammer. She's in the Santa Claus commercial too. Oh, I'm gonna have to look it up now.
There we go. One of Shell's random things.
It's in there, and people could watch that commercial now.
But Saturday Night Fever, man, you just when he's walking down the street, that intro, and you just, for me, it's awesome because it's just this moment where you look at his entire career, and that was when you're in your mid-20s and you're just in your prime, and he just nailed that confidence that when he's walking down the street, and nobody else, we talk a lot of times about people could have maybe done this role or that role. Nobody else could have done that at the time. Don't know who she is.
No clue.
Yes, you do. She was in
Never
Saturday
seen her
Night Fever. Oh, good Lord. I have to I'll pull her picture up from Saturday Night Fever. Sorry.
I have no idea who that is.
Her, you know. Oh, wait.
No.
You did not watch. Stop it. Stop it. You guys are jacking with me again.
Sharon
Donna Pescal is her
Lynn
name.
Varney.
Donna Pescal. I did not know that.
That would be her name.
Yeah. Somebody said IMDb Saturday Fever cast.
I just looked it up. No, I did. I looked it up and I was like, it's Donna Pescal.
So now, do you know how old John Travolta is now?
76.
Something.
70.
Yeah.
70, I think, which shocked me.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was in his, maybe 70 something, but I thought 70, 54 he was born. Yeah. I didn't think he was 70.
Yeah, but Pulp Fiction was how many years ago? And
Yeah, but he
was,
doesn't look 70. Dick Van Patten was 49 and John
Wow.
Travolta is 70.
Yeah.
yeah, I'll give you that.
Well, you got
I mean,
a
what the hell?
little bit of work done now. So
Maybe.
but
I don't
nothing surprises me after I found out that Tony Basil of Oh Mickey is 82.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, nothing surprises me anymore. I mean, Tony Basil, Oh Mickey, you're so fine. 80
Yeah.
freaking 2 years old. I'm like,
She was
come on,
old by
man.
our standards when she made that video. I remember back then being like, I think she's almost 40. And we're like, oh my God. Is she wearing a cheerleader outfit? What's wrong?
And she looked good. She looked good, unlike most of the people at 40 back then did not.
No, but
but
did,
she-
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, after I heard that age, nothing surprises me anymore.
The other memory I have that's indelible from Saturday Night Fever was I used to read the
John had some
magazines.
turf work
That
What?
Sorry. I've never heard it put that way. John's had some turf work done. Travolta, some turf work.
oh, is that what he wrote?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were laughing at me, which would have been fine.
No. He's saying
Remember Cracked Magazine and Mad Magazine?
No, yeah.
They both did spoofs of Saturday Night Fever, and I still can remember. I literally, it's so like embedded in my brain. I can see the actual panels from the thing that they made fun of it because that movie was just, it was so hokey and cheesy to begin with. It lent itself to that so well.
No, it was not cheesy. Everybody wanted, listen, that was Studio 54 time, man. Everybody wanted to learn how to like do the dig, you know what I mean? And like we all wanted to dance like John Travolta after that.
I don't remember John Travolta doing the
the
dig.
dig.
No,
Are they doing the sprinkler too? The sprinkler head?
the sprinkler and the,
I don't know. I remember the Saturday. I remember more of the Grease dances, the this and the.
Oh my God.
Of the two movies, those are the two albums that I remember as being the first two albums I can remember listening to at home. My older brother owned both of those albums, and the covers were amazing. Like you could look it up and it would have lyrics and photos, and the Grease album was almost like a yearbook the way they did it. And Saturday Night Fever had the Bee Gees on the cover and on the disco floor. I just remember that like it was yesterday. Urban Cowboy? I'd forgotten about Urban Cowboy.
Oh my God.
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
It's disturbing.
I don't know that I saw it, but it was a big deal. Saturday Night Fever was Fran Drescher's debut. I
That's
forgot
right.
about that. I could have done the nanny as a
I didn't
as a
realize
thing.
that.
Yeah.
But then Life probably would have put it up 3 seconds earlier and had spamming and ruining my episode in the comments every 4 seconds.
My dear husband said we're working on her dancing.
Is he bald on by choice?
Who? My husband or John
John
Travolta?
Not your husband.
I don't think he is.
No.
But no.
But until almost recently, though, didn't he have like a ton of hair? Where did it go so
Well,
fast?
you get summer hair, you know, summer here and
Summer
summer
here,
there,
summer
and then
there.
you just decide one day you're going to shave it all off, right?
What song did John sing on American Bandstand? Chris, I don't know.
Wow, I don't know that one either.
I didn't know that John Travolta was a singer.
I hope it's something like War Pigs by Black Sabbath because that would be amazing. But I have a feeling it's probably not.
I'm thinking Country Roads by John Denver.
Oh my God. Or maybe he did Grease Lightning.
Rochelle, what does this mean? Oh, you're nuts.
I'm nuts. I'm
I
nuts.
couldn't see it in the small one.
Oh, Peanut the Squirrel. Damn it.
Oh,
It just reminded me of Peanut the squirrel.
that just
Who the
made me
hell's Peanut
sad.
the squirrel?
You
What?
don't know who Peanut the squirrel is?
No.
Are you serious?
What the hell have you been hiding?
What?
What's Peanut the squirrel?
Oh, no.
Oh God.
Oh God.
Yeah,
please.
you're going to have to just Google it. We're not going to get into the whole big story, but you got to Google Peanut the squirrel.
Okay.
Prepare to ruin your day.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a story
Yeah.
that does not.
Oh my
end
God. Wild Hogs. Wild Hogs was awesome. It's so underrated. The John Travolta. If you've never seen Wild Hogs, you got to watch. It's so good. I'm so glad somebody brought that up. Irish brought that up. What a great Travolta movie.
Let Her In is the song he sang on American Bandstand.
Really?
Songs,
Oh.
Sunflower. But even Doreen knew that too. Is that comment? Somebody's Googling.
Are you talking about me?
Maybe. Are you Googling Peanut? Don't do it while we're on the air.
I
Yeah,
only
don't do
no
it.
no. Here's the wait. I got to show you what I do though. Like whenever I go to Google something and I have like 500 tabs open because those are all the things that like oh yeah I got to remember I want to look that up, and then I leave that tab open. And then somebody viciously, it's like a vicious attack when somebody comes by and opens my phone and shuts down my tabs. Like that, like I might divorce for that if I've warned my husband.
It's a vicious attack, huh?
It's a vicious attack.
I just use a notes tab. I've got a notes thing. on
I'm
my
pretty
phone.
sure in Webster's dictionary under vicious attack, it does not have as an
No,
example.
it has Scott's picture
your
as he's
Google tabs.
visibly
As
shutting down her
he's,
tab.
as he's up swiping my tabs. Yeah, like no, you don't do that.
All right. Well, what do you guys think? Decent episode. I give Life all the points.
Oh, he gets them all.
You get them all, buddy.
Yeah.
Today it is Life on Two Wheels out of Boston, Massachusetts. Nailed the topic today. Here I came in thinking I'd have a stump of the world, but more common knowledge than I thought.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have known, by the way, had the audience not said it, a few people, I would not have figured that out, honestly. I would not have made the connection.
Like I said, I thought it'd be fun. I like that we can the Diana Hyland thing. I didn't know until recently, and I thought it was kind of a cool. Like I had no idea. And
Yeah,
to
he
know
lost,
that before
he
Kelly
lost
Preston.
Kelly Preston as well.
Yeah.
I mean, damn.
Yeah. What are you laughing at, Shal?
Doreen says, "Oh, Scott and Ovak, you're in trouble."
What other horror movie was Travolta in besides Carrie? He was in Carrie.
He was?
He was.
Yes.
Oh.
He was one of the kids. I forgot about that.
That
too.
would have been a good
That
connection,
was
too, to use
awesome.
Carrie. Yeah.
I would
That
have
is
never known that.
Me neither.
Life, would you have known that he was in Carrie?
We'll just quiz Life now.
Well, listen, guys. As we put our show to an end again today, I just want to thank you guys, especially our live studio audience. We are continuing to move towards a live version of this show that we will be taking on the road in the upcoming new year, getting closer and closer to that. Hopefully, we're starting on the East Coast. If it goes well, God only knows where we end up. But there will possibly be a live streaming component even to our live show. So stay tuned to hear more from that. Guys, anything you want to add before we go?
I thoroughly enjoyed these topics. I really, I loved the Band-Aid topic. I think more than anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think, next Friday, obviously we're on, but the Friday after Thanksgiving, what do you think? Maybe to throw it out there. I don't know if I'm going to be out of town. So,
I think.
Yeah, I think we take a break.
so make sure you tune in next Friday, because next Friday, we're going to take a break for the following Friday after Thanksgiving, so that Shell can go stand in line at 3 a.m. for Black Friday at wherever she goes and shops.
Nice.
And
I'm being a Cyber Monday kind of person.
Here's where I shop.
Yep.
And,
So next Friday, it's Shell.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
God only knows what 3 topics we'll end up with next week.
I
But
already
I'm
wrote one
pretty sure
down.
she's already got them.
Yeah.
definitely something we never heard of.
And Shell, if you need any media attached, let me know.
I will. I'm writing it
There's
down.
no- All right, guys.
All right.
I'm out. See you soon. Bye.
I'm going to go
See
watch Mike
everybody.
Tyson later.
Fucker ruined my